Hello, everybody. Good evening. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for joining us. So, going to be a bit of a different one this time around because this for this podcast, normally we would do this live, but for this evening, this is going to be all pre-recorded. So, by all means, put your comments in the live chat. I will respond during the live chat. But unfortunately, it just means that we won't be able to put your questions to our guest. Right now, our guest this evening, first of all, has an incredible kind of experience that she's brave enough to share, quite frankly. So this guest has come forward with an amazing, I won't just say it's just a poltergeist experience, because it's so much more than that, but it's going to be a really fascinating guest. Please stick with us. She's got an amazing story to tell. And I just want to know, by the time we're finished, what do you make of her experience? Do you think that it can all be put down to, is she kind of making things up, or has it got some kind of rational explanation? Is it all happening in her head? But I would love to know, because I think I read her blog of her experiences growing up and through to adulthood, and it's just fascinating, really fascinating. So I'm going to introduce Collette. Now, Collette has grown up with a range of experiences, and the best person to speak to had to be her. And I just wanted to get her on board and talk to you guys and find out a little bit more about her childhood, her experiences growing up, and into adulthood now, and what things that may or may not be happening right this moment. So let's bring her on. There we go. And let's have a look. There she is. All right. Okay. So let me just change this screen slightly. First of all, Collette, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast. I really appreciate it, because I think you've got an amazing story to tell.
Thank you.
Can I just start by asking one thing? There's a lot involved with your story, and some things are quite traumatic and ordinarily might be quite difficult to share. Why did you want to come on and talk about it, first of all?
I think because it's an unusual story of my life that I've never actually had closure. I don't know. Nothing's been explained to me about why it's happened. And because I was left to my own devices to try and navigate my life with all this weird stuff happening, I've looked at quantum metaphysics to try and see if that can explain some of the things, because rather than just saying, oh, it's a ghost, that doesn't really mean anything to me. It's weird things are happening, but I'd like to know why.
Yeah. What is, I've said this before, my very first one, it's like just doing this podcast to find out what the hell is going on. And and first of all, like I say, it's very brave of you to come on and talk about these kind of experiences, because it's not an easy thing. I know it, you know it. It's not an easy thing to talk about this kind of stuff because of stigma and because of what people might be thinking of you and things like that. But I'm pretty much guessing that you just want to get some answers and just want to know and just find out, for a peace of mind in terms of what you experienced was real. Is that, I mean, should we start from the beginning, maybe? I mean, where did all of this start from for you?
It started when I was 5. I moved home quite a lot when I was young. I moved from Scotland down to Somerset, and I loved Somerset. It was great, but then we moved back up to Scotland. So there was a lot of changes in my life in quick succession. And one friend that I made at the new house, she was visiting, and she noticed I was in the bathroom, we're washing our hands, we were playing in the mud and stuff outside. And she jumped, and she noticed that the amber glass that we had in the bathroom actually moved. and it moved and then went back. So that was odd. Uh,
Mhm.
then I had a little electric piano that I think a lot of kids had in the 80s. It's, just easy to learn how to play music, and it was playing by itself at night. I put it next to my bed,
Right.
put my lamp on, it was gone, but it was still playing, and there was just no explanation as to why it was happening.
What do you mean it was gone? Had it moved then
No,
since?
it just vanished completely.
Right, okay.
Where I left it on my bedside table, it vanished. It wasn't on the floor. It wasn't, with my sibling who I shared a room with. They were scared
Yeah.
as well because we didn't understand what was going on, and I fell asleep with the light on that night. And because I tried to communicate with it, I said, "Press," I think it was 1 for yes, 2 for no. And I would start asking questions,
So
you
that's
know,
that's pretty big thing, because you were really young at the time,
uh,
and you already had this idea that you could communicate with it. Where did that come from?
I don't know. I was I would let me see. I don't even think there was any apart from Scooby-Doo, there was nothing that I watched that would have suggested that.
Yeah.
Um, but because I was trying to think of a way of communication, but I thought that was really strange. I've actually often wondered that, where I did get that idea from. Um,
And
but
so obviously this was your, I mean, I do have some photos for guys watching to have a look. We'll have a look at those photos of different properties that you've lived in, including I'm assuming the first property is the one that you lived in whilst when you went back to Scotland. Is that correct?
that's correct. Yeah, that's the one I grew up in.
And you didn't have anything prior, did it start to happen it didn't happen in Somerset, for instance. Did these things just start when you moved back to Scotland?
I don't recall anything happening before Scotland,
Yeah.
before moving back up. Um, I have no recollection. I remember feeling scared in Somerset.
Mhm.
The house was, I think, probably the largest one that my family ever lived in. We
Yeah.
had more rooms than we had people in the house. There was lots of rooms. So I don't even recall what was in the rooms, to be honest. I just
So
remember my room and
you had the glass smoothing with your friend. Then you
yeah,
had this little electric keyboard seemingly playing on its own or moving.
yeah.
Did uh, did anything else happen like when you were younger?
Yeah, my mum was giving my sibling a bath during the daytime, and I was gonna ask my mum something, and I walked along the upper hallway, and somebody said my name up above my head very clearly,
Wow.
and
Okay.
I got scared, but there was no way I was looking up, and I just walked in and I can't remember even what I needed my mum for, but I asked her what I was gonna ask, but then told her that somebody said my name from above.
And this
Uh,
was this in the kind of landing area of your
yes,
home?
yes.
We've got a photo of that. So this is obviously from those on screen can probably see this now. So this is a view of the landing area. There's a second photo here, kind of
Mm,
looking down from the stairs.
yeah.
So obviously from where this long lamp was obviously, so it's from above you in this area of the house, was it?
Yeah, it was if I'm looking down at that photo now, it was to the left. There was the bathroom, the upstairs bathroom,
Yeah.
and that was the bathroom, and then downstairs was the shower room. And when I was walking past it, it was like a husky whispered voice saying my name. It only
And
happened one time.
did anybody else hear this at all?
No, 'cause, my sibling was in the bath
Right.
and my mom was, you know, bathing
And
them.
how did you feel at that point? Were you scared? Were
I
you
was,
interested?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was scared, but I knew not to look up. Something just everything in me was just like, "I'm not paying that attention."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Look up. If something says my name above my head, absolutely, I'm not looking up.
And I mean, you mentioned in your blog that it was a bit of a strange house, and I mean that kind of nicely because you mentioned that one wall was made of glass or something, and it was. Can you kind of explain that? Because I've never come across that before. I find it really odd.
Yeah. Well, as you can see in the staircase there, the it was split into 2 levels. Where I'm looking at the moment, there's a set of stairs going up one direction and then it comes up another direction. So there
Right.
was the left and the right. The left-hand side was an extension, a house extension.
Yeah.
That's where my room was. And my dad's study was across from that in the hall.
Yeah.
So, I was a teenager and I had some pictures I got from town and I was wanting to put them up. Um, I borrowed my dad's hammer to do that, just to put a nail on the wall, and it cracked. And I
Right.
was like, okay, that's not normal. Um, and I tried a different part of the wall and I was
Yeah.
hammering the nail and it cracked again. And I was like, no, there's something not right here. So my dad was in his study. He was sorting through something on this bookshelf.
Mhm.
And I explained that to him. I said, I've just tried to put my pictures up. There was like this really weird cracking noise coming from the wall.
Yeah.
And he said it was a really weird setup when we moved in because it was a glass wall between the study and what was the girls' room. And what he did before we moved in was plaster over it,
Mhm.
wallpaper it. He said the dad was like studying the daughter, but
That's weird.
yes, what
Right.
was even more weird is the curtains were on the dad's side.
Ooh.
And I'm like, that's not okay. You
No.
I knew that before they put me into that room because no,
Did you I mean, did you know, and other than this really kind of creepy, weird glass wall situation between the father and the daughter from do you know
it's
anything about the history of who might have lived there before or anything else other than
it's
that?
I remember their name because we had some post delivered to us, but I know absolutely nothing about who they were.
Yeah.
Uh, my I remember I actually wrote in the blog as well that I found it really strange because my mom took me and my sibling into town, and we walked into a small cafe, and there was a woman with a couple of daughters sitting down.
Mhm.
And the women got up. This was only I can't remember if it was 1 or 2 months after we moved in.
Oh, okay, so quite
Yeah,
hadn't been there that long. Yeah.
yeah. Um, so she said, "Oh, are you still living in the house?" And I thought even as a kid, I thought that was so strange. Like, why
Yeah.
why would we be moving out? Like, I knew I moved a lot as a kid with my dad's job, but
Mhm.
there was no reason for us to move
It
out.
it kinda makes you wonder about what people knew in the area about your home.
I know.
Yeah.
Um, I I never spoke to anyone about the experiences there because I didn't wanna sound nuts, quite
Yeah.
frankly. They were all very lovely people,
Mhm.
very, you know, They were mostly at work.
Yeah.
It was a middle class home. It was a middle class neighborhood. There was just nothing that would have looked strange.
I mean, your voice, you heard your name being called,
Yeah.
and you had this the strength, the glass moving, and this little piano. Is it like a little piano kind of keyboard thing, kind of
It's like
playing?
a little one that I got at Church Street Market. I
But
remember it fondly, but I couldn't wait to get rid of it
am I
because
right? Am I right in thinking you also heard footsteps as well above you in your bedroom? Did that happen in this house?
that happened when I was a teenager in that room, and
Oh, okay.
I thought I was going crazy because I knew that's not normal. I would hear a
Yeah.
thump. The roof of the house was completely flat on the extension part, and it was one floor up. So it's not even like it was lower level.
Yeah.
So if anybody was up there, they'd need a ladder or to fly. And it was a thump every single night, and then very heavy footsteps from one side to the other. And when that happened as well, there was something being dragged across, but then little footsteps that sounded like a little child running, and it would
Wow. Okay.
repeat every single night.
And
Oh,
how? I mean, would it just stop? Would it last a little while? I mean, how long would this go on for?
my gosh. It would last every single night. I was exhausted mentally, and the little footsteps would run back and forth. When it was like the thump, like something landed on the roof, then the something heavy dragging, that would repeat every night for, I'm gonna say, months. One night, it then got worse, where there was weird noises from inside my room.
Right. Okay.
There was because the way I was looking at it was, if it's on the roof, I'm safe inside. You know, I'm
Yeah.
okay. I didn't get much sleep, but I'm safe. And then there was like we had a field at the back of us, and we got mice. That's not unusual.
Mhm.
And I love mice, so that really wasn't an issue. I absolutely adore them. And there was like a scratching. The base of the bed?
Yeah. Yeah.
It was like, I don't know, it was wood, some sort of wood, and it was like scratching, and it was going on all night, and I was too scared to move. I
Mhm.
put the lamp on, it would stop. And when I thought, "Right, I'll turn it off again," it would start up again. Then there was a knock at my window, like
Right. Okay.
knocking, and I was that level of fear, I can't even explain to somebody who hasn't experienced it. I don't even remember falling back to sleep, but I did. I woke up because I would pull the covers over my head because I was so scared.
Mhm.
What that was gonna solve, I don't know, but I don't know if it was instincts, it was just like to cower.
And just so to make it clear, kind of how old were you roughly at this point?
Oh my gosh. 14, 15.
Oh, okay. Right. Yeah. So, and I mean, did it? I know it sounds really strange, but did you almost get used to it, or were you always kind of terrified of these noises that are happening nearly every night?
I was terrified the first couple of months, and then I just tried to block it out. Tried to tell my mum,
Mhm.
and she would be like, "No, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Just ignore it. It's fine."
Oh, okay.
When you're told that by your parent,
Yeah.
of course you're just gonna dismiss it and go, "Oh, well, my mom's ignoring it, so I will."
I'll just and again, I'll just change the screen slightly. So we
Mm.
had these couple of images of your home, and or we'll go back to this question. So obviously that's you taking a selfie as a teenager in your room.
Yeah.
So I mean, overall, your experience there, you had this weird stuff going on at night.
Yeah.
What was this? Obviously, I mean, those who are kind of watching this will think, well, actually, you're kind of exactly the right age for poltergeist phenomena. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
was it a stressful environment? Was it, was it a happy environment? What kind of environment was it? Because lots of those who have looked at poltergeist phenomena will know, well, actually, adolescent, female, teenager, it kind
Mhm.
of centers around that kind of person in lots of teenage angst and things like that. Do you think any of that might have been a reason for why this was going on?
I've tried to look into the science of the whole brain, you know, what it can do,
Yeah,
because, you know, I've spoken to doctors who are they only work, on the brain and the way that the brain works.
yeah,
There's part of the brain that we don't know what it's used for. And I did wonder if things that I was maybe keeping in,
yeah,
you know, trauma would have manifested. Is that the right
yeah,
term?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
Done something, but I just kind of passed it off as, oh, it must be the house.
Hmm.
At the time, like, it must be the house,
Yeah.
It's I grew up watching Scooby-Doo. I know that, s houses are haunted. Some houses are haunted.
Now,
Um, you know,
I'm just gonna I've just changed the photo to one of this kind of kit. Is it like a kitchen hallway or a
oh,
hallway just off
it's
the kitchen?
it's a passageway. The
Right.
kitchen was to the left, the garage was to the right, and there was a door behind that looking there was a back door to the back garden, and then the door at the end there to the front.
Now, obviously, for obviously something happened in this location that I think, from what you've said to me prior, was
Yeah,
probably for you probably the most frightening thing that happened. Would you say?
100%. Yeah, it's actually kind of hard to look at that, but it's I've tried to explain it to people before, and I came across the old photos and stuff when I moved to my current house, and I thought I didn't even know I was always taking photographs of everything.
Yeah.
My dad was into photography, he would have his photos up in the study, so it wasn't unusual that I was just photographing lots of different things from weird angles, and there was the shelves that run along there had all of the extra things that we had from our old houses,
Yeah.
and it was filled with the cupboard was filled with old, um, you know, cutlery and some boxes as well. I was on study leave and I had the house to myself. I took a shower, beautiful sunny day. It wasn't scary or anything like that. It was so calm, and I had a list written down of things that I had to do and study, and I was trying to time it so that I wasn't missing any subjects to study for. I got upstairs in my room, and there was the biggest explosion I have ever heard. And I ran down, and I was in my towel, okay? I'm the most shy person ever, and I opened the door to try and get help, to call one of the neighbors, because I know that some of them were retired, and nobody was around. So I quickly then ran upstairs, just pulled on a jumper and jeans, and ventured into the hallway. And sorry, it's really difficult to talk about.
Do you want me to get rid of the photo? Would that help?
Yeah,
There you go.
please.
Let me get rid of that. There we
You.
go. So
Um,
so there you
yeah,
go. Sorry, let me
basically all of the stuff that was on the shelves and the cupboards were open, everything for the full length of the passageway, everything was off.
so you hear this explosion, or this kind of, I mean, did it sound like it was from within your home rather than?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I actually my bedroom was above the garage
Yeah,
below, and I thought it was the tumble dryer was in the garage,
yeah.
and I assumed that was the first thing that came into my head, something's happened to the tumble dryer or the washing machine, and I walked downstairs and opened the passageway door to go into the garage that was facing, and all I noticed everything in the passageway was just on the floor,
Wow.
and I froze, and because I didn't want to get into trouble from my parents, I was like,
Yeah.
I need to, like, tidy this up. They're not gonna believe me." You know, I tried to tell them about the footsteps and things on the roof. Everything was just dismissed. And I picked everything up, and there was one box that was lots of tinkling.
Yeah.
I thought, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna get killed. Like, my parents are gonna go nuts. Something's clearly broken," but I didn't know what it was. And I put it back on the shelf and locked the door to the passageway, and I thought, "If anything else happens, I'll let them see it when they get back
Was
home."
Can I just ask, were things, obviously things have just kind of shot out of these cupboards and kind of ended up all over the floor.
Yep.
Were they smashed or were they placed or was it just like devastation and things were broken, you had to
It
kind of get a
was
dustpan and brush type thing?
um, there was only, there was a couple of boxes that had crockery in, I think, because, they were taped up, but I know that my mom said previously when she sent me into the passageway to find something
Yeah.
she might have wanted in the kitchen, and I would say, "Oh, is it this one?" Or she said, "No, that's old dishes and the posh cutlery, you know, the silver in the case and that kind of thing." But the one thing that was really smashed to pieces was sealed in a box. And as I said, I didn't want to get the blame for that, so I
Yeah.
didn't mention it. And it wasn't until 5, 6 years ago I mentioned it to my dad, and he said that was the glasses that he got from his sister when she passed.
And had he mentioned, because I'm assuming he would have found those. Did he mention them to you, that the
No,
glasses were smashed or anything like that? Or did he kind of
no,
keep that to himself?
no, he kept that to himself. Because nobody said anything,
Mhm.
I tried to tell them I was scared or
Yeah.
worried. It would just be, "No,
I mean,
it's."
that's pretty terrifying. I mean, to have something like that happen, and obviously you still even can barely look at the picture of
No.
that area. I mean, how did that affect your view of that house even? I mean, were you terrified of the house by that point? I mean, were you?
I was scared of whatever was in there,
Yeah,
but I also knew that my other friends, their parents were involved with their life,
yeah,
and, you know, they would help them, and there was so many conversations. I would, like, go over to a friend's house, and the parents were just really in-depth conversations, and I didn't have that. So, when something
without
like
wanting to kind of pry then in terms of your parents, how were were you able to talk to your parents, or was it quite, were they quite dismissive then, or?
um, I would say reserved. You
Yeah,
know, anything that happened in the house didn't go out of the house.
right, okay,
There was no in-depth conversation. If I had questions, they wouldn't be answered. And I had questions, but you can't make people talk,
yeah,
you know? And So everything that was happening, I was keeping in.
Mhm.
I confided in a couple of friends. They were great. They understood, but I was too scared to tell it to what was my best friend in school, and I invited her over for a sleepover.
Yeah.
And she was incredibly smart. You know, she was level-headed and she was lovely. And so we were having a sleepover, we were having fun, listening to music and stuff. And at night, I was just dropping off. Or no, actually I was asleep because she was calling me. She was sleeping on the floor in a sleeping bag.
Yeah.
And she called me and I was like, what is it? And she said, make it stop. And I said, what do you mean? Make what stop? You know, and
Mm.
I was asleep. And she said, the noises. And then I heard the dragging above the ceiling
Yeah.
and the footsteps. And I was like, oh my
I mean, that must be in a weird way, that must have been quite good for you to actually have
gosh.
somebody else experience the same thing that you was experiencing. You're not going mad or anything like that, you know?
Well, I thought I was. I
Yeah.
genuinely thought I'm going crazy. Like, I can't explain everything that's happening. And my parents won't answer anything or explain anything. So
Mm.
it was everything was kept in. I had a religious studies teacher who I went to and said, look, all this weird stuff's happening and I don't know what to do. And he said, it sounds like you need to get your house blessed. I couldn't tell that to my parents. They weren't religious.
Yeah.
Um, then there was like a witchcraft book, a really old witchcraft book in the study that was it's like the pages were hand typed, but it
Right.
was
Okay.
a weird material book. One of the spells was about go into your chamber and place the chamber key that would obviously have like a loop.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain. Put that into a Bible and twist it. There was a Bible in the study. I have to say that it was a Good News Bible. I
Okay.
don't
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
given
Yeah. I
to
know the type you mean. Yeah.
yeah. Um, but yeah, it was just none of it made sense. None of it answered any questions. I just had to go about my life.
So
I couldn't wait to get out of
I
there.
was I was about to say, I mean, just change the screen. So obviously, at some point, I mean, how old were you when you left that property? Because the two photos we've got on here now, I think is your place in Edinburgh. Is that correct? Did you move over
Yeah,
to Edinburgh?
yeah, I got a job in Edinburgh. I couldn't wait to move out the house.
Not surprising.
Yeah, but remember, I thought it was the house that was haunted
Yes.
because of I only knew about haunted houses. And I thought that's great, no more issues. And it was so lovely to be by myself in a beautiful city and new friends, and it was lovely. I really, it was nice to get out.
So you'd moved away from childhood home, moved
Yeah.
to Edinburgh,
Mhm.
big city, big social life.
Yeah.
Everything's going well, and like you say, you kind of left all of that past stuff
Yeah.
behind,
Yeah.
but it didn't work out that way. I'm assuming. So obviously you were in this place, new fresh start, everything else. What started to happen in Edinburgh?
Um, I I'm trying to think chronologically. I lived in Murrayfield. No, I lived in Christorfen first, and I stayed in a flat above. There was tennis courts
Mm.
out the back, and there was just one night. It made no sense to me. It still doesn't. And I had a latch on the inside of my bedroom door. My flatmate, I was my flatmate and her boyfriend owned the flat,
Mhm.
but they were renting out the extra room. So I stayed there, and there was just one night I was woken up because there was like a weird. I thought it was a spider, first of all, because you know that kind of weird
Yeah.
movement on your head, and I
Yeah.
was
Like almost like a web, almost kind of like,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and I was like trying to move it away, and then I opened my eyes, and there was a guy in a suit next to my bed.
Wow. Okay.
And I was like, but it's weird because there was a bay window and the curtains weren't terribly thick. That
Mhm.
it was enough to let the light in that I could see the outline of someone there. And my first thought was maybe, um, if my flatmate and her partner, maybe they've got a friend in, he's
Yeah.
messing around. Maybe he drank too much. Yeah, I don't know. And I said, "What are you doing?" And I could feel him marking the middle of my forehead. And then he got up and walked towards the window.
Mhm.
And I got out of bed, turned the light on, and because the curtains went in front of the bay windows, so there was like, you open it up and then there's a semicircle,
Yeah.
and the tennis courts were lit up. And there was no one there. And I thought, okay, that's really weird.
And did this
Um,
figure look solid to you, or did it just look like a
100.
regular person? And
It looked like somebody in a suit, just
yeah.
as real as I'm looking at you now. It was solid, it wasn't transparent.
Mm.
But when I turned around, the latch on my door was actually locked. So they couldn't have got in,
Yeah. Uh,
and it
and was there any way that they could have got out the window? I'm just thinking kind of
no,
what trying to
3 floors.
explain.
I think it was 3 floors, 4 floors up. It
Okay.
was the typical Edinburgh flat,
Yeah.
there's 3 or 4 floors. Um But yeah, it was that was my first thing since moving out of the home,
Mhm.
my family home, and I don't know, it's just it was uncomfortable.
Yeah, I bet.
I found the witchcraft book, bizarrely, when I moved into my friend's flat, and it was in the suitcase from my bedroom. I didn't want it. She said, "Oh, what's that?" And I was like, I have I must have come in with my belongings when I've packed up quickly because I couldn't wait to leave the house. And I gave it to her. I was like, "You can have it. I don't need it.
Mhm.
Um, so you can keep hold of that." And she was amazed by it. She thought it was really cool. Um, and then I moved out from that house, sorry, that flat to I met my partner at the time I became engaged,
Mhm.
and then I moved into Murrayfield.
As I said, was that place then was the incident with that male figure the only thing that happened in that place? Was it generally quite a
It was just
was it a homely place? Or did you feel happy there and things?
it was so lovely. I had a skylight
Mhm.
with, like, plants in the hallway, and, my flatmate had a beautiful cat, which I loved, and it was lovely. It was so nice, and it was a nice area as well, you
So
know?
you moved from there, you moved out, you moved and you had a partner at the time.
Mm.
Okay, so um, in terms of home life, things were quite settled, or were there issues, or what started to happen then?
Yeah. Um, it was things I thought were perfect, and, um, I had everything going for me. I had a good job, good money coming in. I
Mhm.
mean, Murrayfield in Edinburgh is a really expensive place to live,
Mm.
and it was just up the road from where I lived before.
Yeah.
Um, and things changed. Uh, I fell pregnant. I needed to get out of the place. And yeah, I found myself in an abusive relationship that, domestic abuse.
And and obviously it's kind of for those that have been in that kind of thing. It's a horrible, stressful, horrible atmosphere,
Yeah.
and the only reason we kind of mention it without kind of moving on, because obviously you may not want to talk about it, is because something kind of extraordinary happened in the midst of this abusive relationship that was just kind of, well, mad, for want of a better word. So kind of
Yeah.
what happened?
Right. There was weird things started happening in the flat. And one night I was just going to go out for some fresh air. And it was a beautiful big garden. And I went to move, and my partner just punched me really hard on my cheek, so hard I fell backwards.
Right.
And I just remember looking up at him thinking, he's going to hurt me.
Mhm.
He's really going to hurt
Yeah.
me. And just at that moment, that we had a built-in bookshelf, and this book out of nowhere just came flying across, smacked him on the head, and he kind of stumbled backwards, but he remained upright. When he
Roughly how far away was this bookcase from him
oh,
at that time?
um, I'm really bad at describing distances, but it was like a, um, 4 feet?
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah,
Or
yeah. So a fair way then.
with the room. It was a built-in bookcase next to the window,
I've,
and
we've,
that had
we've got a photo of that the book that you say comes. Let me just move on.
yeah,
This is the World of the Children book. Is this the one we're
yeah,
seeing right now? I mean, there's other photos that give you an idea of the size of it compared to a remote control. I mean,
yeah.
this is not a small
No,
book.
no, it wasn't. It was I think it probably saved me, to be honest, that they were books that I got when I was christened as a baby,
Yeah,
and they were given to me by, I think it was my grandparents. Um, big books.
yeah,
There and I found them when I moved to this house, um, within the past few years, and I was like, "Right, I've now got the photos of the book that I was blogging about."
yeah.
And I was like, "I need to show people this, just to show them how big this book is."
It looks like it's a heavy looking kind of hardback book here. It's not,
Is
and just kind of get across this didn't just fall out of the bookcase and fall to the
no,
ground.
no, it flew and smacked my abusive partner on the head. He ran out. I think he was trying to take in what had just happened, and he bolted from the flat. He came back in about 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah.
and he apologized.
I'm not surprised. I mean,
You know, I think whatever caused that, I'm grateful
do
because
you I
it
mean,
was it would have been worse.
without wanting to kind of describe you like Carrie, do you think you caused that to happen, or do you think it was outside of your control? If that
Well,
makes any sense. Did you think, you were able
I
to kind of
I've tried I've
sorry.
no, sorry. I've tried to think, um, from that moment that happened, and the next day, and I was wondering, did I cause that?
Mm.
But as far as I'm aware, I think I'm not sure how is it
Psychokinesis, yeah.
psychokinesis works. I think you need to be concentrating on something to make it move,
Yeah.
and I wasn't concentrating on anything. I was getting up to leave the front room when he punched me, and I definitely nothing was going through my head apart from the fact he was gonna hurt me.
Yeah.
So when that came flying across the room, stunning him.
I mean, for me, just listen to that. It's kind of it's obviously links with a lot of things in terms of psychokinesis, in terms of a moment of high stress, and and obviously you've been in a very kind of high stress environment for a while, and obviously at that point you thought you was going to get badly hurt.
Yeah.
I mean, and it must be the kind of thing where once it happens, obviously you're trying to work out, and he was obviously trying to work out what the hell was going on.
He was scared.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I mean, did you? I mean,
but
for you, how did you feel at that point? Did you feel that it was almost protecting you? Did you think it was something else?
I honestly didn't know what to think. My first thought was psychokinesis, but then I thought it doesn't make sense to me because I wasn't focused on it. I didn't think of it. I just wanted to go out of the flat. So it was very, I don't know, like lost.
Yeah.
There was so much happening. I had no one to turn to. I was by myself in Edinburgh. He came back and apologized, and he never laid a finger on me again after that.
Good. I mean, it shouldn't have taken a flying book to make that happen, but obviously that's just an incredible experience. Did anything else happen around about the same time, either before or after, or was it that was the main instant?
There was a night where I was in bed, and this is before the book incident, and there was mirrored wardrobe. I can't stand mirrored wardrobes. They were next to the bed, and I was just lying there because I couldn't sleep, and it was so loud right in front of my face, and there was just the most shrill screaming, and I hid underneath the covers, but for some reason my body went into a fetal position.
It's to protect yourself, and
what that could have stopped. And I was so scared, and I told my partner to sleep on that side of the bed because I was too scared to sleep there. I hated mirrored wardrobes. I've never liked them. That just sort of exacerbated my dislike for them. And then I woke up one night, and my partner was walking into the room with a baseball bat.
I
was like, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I saw you in your nightdress standing next to me, in front of the mirrored wardrobes." And he said, "What are you doing?" Because he couldn't figure out why I was looking in the wardrobe. And then he turned around, and I was next to him. So he had no idea who that was. So he thought there was some sort of weird intruder in a nightdress. The figure walked out of the bedroom into the living room, and he said that all the cushions in the front room were piled up, stacked up in the middle, and there was no figure in sight. The figure he thought was me just was nowhere to be seen.
Wow. I mean, that's kind of for me, a bit of a big deal, because obviously in a lot of these situations from childhood, it was mainly involving yourself. I know you said a friend was there at one point, but an awful lot tended to kind of focus around you. And it sounds to me that it was one of the few times actually that somebody else had kind of experienced something weird that they couldn't explain, and you weren't maybe the direct focus of it.
It was, in a way, again, I was kind of relieved that it wasn't me. It wasn't just me experiencing these weird things. And the whole reason why I wrote the blog post, I've said to my husband and my family, there is no way we're the only ones that have or are experiencing this. No way. And I don't believe that for a second. Maybe there's no phone number to phone. If you're experiencing this, you can't phone up someone and say, "What do I do? How do I protect myself?"
And I think for people kind of watching this and kind of fascinated by your kind of story so far, and this isn't the whole of it, by the way, there's more. I mean, did you kind of suppress this? Did you not tell anybody, or kind of
No.
reach out to people?
Due to the abusive relationship, I didn't have friends.
Yeah.
He would take the keys and lock me in the house, lock me in the flat.
So the
Um,
isolation was pretty severe at that point then, I take it, in terms of
I remember in summer, I actually climbed out the back window and strapped Julia onto me,
Mhm.
and climbed out the back window just so I could get air and get out the house.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, there was trauma there.
Mm. Yeah,
I always wondered if trauma, if the brain can do something that would project, or other beings
yeah.
can.
Well, it's definitely a theory, isn't it, in terms of, obviously people talk about the trauma and the stress, of an adolescent regards poltergeist cases and things like that. But I think it's definitely, I think, in terms of when you're in that kind of high emotional state,
Mm,
there is definitely certainly other cases where things do happen to occur when you are in that kind of fight or flight mode, when at the high stress that's obviously was going on for you at that point.
yeah,
I mean, so let's just kind of fast forward a little bit and get out
yeah,
from there,
yeah.
because it's probably not a nice place to kind of hang around
It's
in
not.
that kind of time in your life. Um, Moving on to kind of happier times, did things settle? Did things solve it? Was there anything that happened, when after you left that relationship?
Uh, I'm trying to remember. I was a single mother, but I was just trying to make my daughter feel secure.
Mhm.
Uh, I had a few things happen that it's kind of hard to talk about.
Yeah.
It like most people would be able to just tell you their story, but because I actually have diagnosed post-traumatic stress disorder from
It's fine. I mean, it's
things.
I
Uh,
mean, obviously, by all
mm,
means, you don't need to talk about it if you don't want to,
yeah,
because I don't don't want anything kind of further
that's
trauma and things for you. The only reason I asked is because you mentioned some strange light phenomena that was
oh my
happening.
gosh, yeah. Right, so fast forward, I moved back to Fife, and from Edinburgh, I got a job, and there was I met my husband, we got married and had another child, and everything was wonderful. It was so happy and lovely, and I would say perfect.
Yeah.
And one day, my youngest daughter, I think she was 3 or 4. She was in the small room of the house, and my daughter and my eldest daughter, we were watching something in my bedroom, and we heard her screaming, and we quickly, went to the door, and we're like, "Are you okay? Let us in." And there was nothing. There was no noise. And my husband ran up from downstairs, and I said, "I don't know if one of her toys are stuck under the door." I was turning the door handle, and it would not move. And my husband said, "The hinges are bent. The hinges down the door are bent."
What? Like literally, just kind of all the way down.
Every hinge, the hinges, that they were bent. And I thought it was just something trapping the door. So my husband went down to get his toolkit, and he was hammering the hinges back so we could get in. And my youngest was just, I don't know, she had her toys, but she was calm.
Yeah.
And I put my arm around her, and I'm like, "Are you okay? Do the mom thing, like, what happened?" And she said, "I don't remember." and that worried me, you know? She has autism, and I don't know if just the way that, she's like, "Oh, I don't remember, I
Yeah, I
don't
mean,
know." She
difficult to verbalize things.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and I was like, "That's okay, you're safe now." So, I was quite happy to move her in with my eldest child,
Mm.
for security more than anything, so that wouldn't happen again. And one morning, my children said, "Oh, there was lights in our room." I said, "What do you mean lights? Like your
Mm.
fairy lights? Did you turn them on?" Or they said, "No, it was like a round circle, but then it went down onto the floor, but then it was moving in a triangle shape
Right.
and
Okay.
then vanished." And I was like, "Oh, okay." Because I was trying to be rational
Mm.
and try and go, "Oh, okay," trying to offer an explanation, but I couldn't. I
Yeah.
I thought it might have been one of the light sticks that we got from, a Christmas fair,
Mhm.
but that was downstairs, so it wasn't that. But then they started to see that they kept saying that there's balls of light moving around the home, and I don't believe in orbs, period. I
Yeah.
didn't believe in them. I was like, "Come on, it's gonna be," uh, because I always believed, and because I was so used to taking photographs, it was almost OCD for me to take photos, and I always put it down to dust,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
light,
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
which is rational, and
Had you seen any of these lights prior or at the time, or
not at that time. I was
yeah,
dismissing it. I just thought, "Oh, that's nice. It's a little light show," because until I had an explanation, I didn't know what, because I hadn't seen it.
yeah,
I was like, "Oh, maybe it's the light shining in from the curtain and reflecting off of something," trying to explain it. There was one night I was in bed and my husband was next to me, and I was so tired, and I was like, "Right." So I pulled the cover up. As I pulled the duvet over me to sleep, there was a ball about that big on me, on my chest.
wow, okay.
And I was like, "What the heck is that?" And Gordon's like, "What is it?" I was like, "I don't know. Grab your camera and take a photo," because I always turn my phone off when I'm in bed. And he was just like, just as he went to take a photo, so typical and so annoying, the thing vanished.
And obviously, because I've never seen people talk about orbs that I've never seen. Like you, I've very kind of dismissive
Like,
of kind of orb photos and
yeah,
things.
like, I
But
always thought it was dust, or, maybe it was the light reflecting off of something,
but did
because
it emit any kind of heat, or was it just light, or
no,
did it feel? Did you feel any pressure
did
or
not
anything?
no, I was not feeling whatever the heck that was. It was just sort of, like, there on my chest, and one thing I did do was I thought, "Is it reflecting from something I'm not aware of?" So I pulled the duvet down, because maybe it would be shining,
Yeah.
like, dew on it, lifted it up, and the freaking thing was still there. And how do you explain something that can't be explained? Like, it was so frustrating. So after that, I told my girls, "Look, I've seen the ball of light, I've seen the light," um, but I would see them flying quite low
Mm.
on the passageway door outside my room, and then the cat chasing it. The cat would, like, chase it back and forth, and, um, it was frustrating, but it alarmed me because I'm thinking, "What is this? Is this the start
Yeah.
of something again?" Because I had years of nothing happening, and then things exacerbated so quickly after seeing the orb of light.
And there's a photo that you took of your daughter, and I've kind of let me just put this on screen, and I've kind of obscured her face, but you can't actually see her
Wow.
face. So I mean, I'll come back to the cat as well. I mean, the
Yeah.
So obviously on this photo, obviously you've got a black and white version of the same photo here. So can you just kind of explain what it is you feel you've kind of captured here? Because it's a strange looking image.
I don't know. I have passed when I was taking photos, my husband worked shifts. Him and I actually worked on the same shift. That's how we met. But when I became disabled, I was at home all the time with the kids. And I would take photos of what we were up to on the day, you know, so he could like see the updates. And that was a cuddly toy I got after a children's party. And my child sat down and she was playing with it. And I took a photo of it on my camera, about to WhatsApp him it. And I just I was like, what is that? And my husband messaged me and he was like, what is that on her shoulder? I was like, I don't know. I have passed that image to so many photographers on social media. I've emailed magazines and I'm like, can you please explain this? Because
Yeah.
I can't. And none of them, no photographer can explain what is going on in that photo, what it is that's captured. It was my eldest daughter, Julia, who said, put a filter on it, like change it to black and white, to see if it's solid or transparent. So I did that, but unfortunately, I have no answers. I really, really don't.
And
I think it's
let's say it's worth just kind of saying at this point that if anybody's watching, obviously people may have seen, and you and I and people at home have
yeah,
seen lots of photos of supposed orbs and things like that, and a lot like you say, dust, pollen, those kinds of things. This looks a little bit more interesting than some of that, and it also doesn't look like lens flare to me either. So if there's anybody who's looking at this image now and can give a
yes.
kind of solid idea of what exactly may be causing this, it'd be really good to hear from you guys. If you kind of, is there any kind of explanation for this?
That would be amazing. Do you know what? I would really appreciate that
Yeah.
because I've been trying for many years since then, just to try and get behind it.
Yeah. And I suppose the last image I'm going to put on there
Oh Lord.
is of your cat. Now,
No.
why are we talking about your cat?
Ah, the little Gizmo. Yeah. Gizmo is our first cat. He's older and he's very, very sweet. He's almost like a guardian of the house,
Yeah.
and he's got the same characteristics as a dog.
Okay.
You know, it's hard to explain. I don't know if it's the type of cat he is. He was a rescue cat. He's very large. And when everything started going haywire and we started seeing lights, there was a bang. Sorry, I'm trying to explain this in order. I was in the front room and we had wooden doors, you know, separating the dining room from the living room.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there, beautiful sunny day. It was glorious. It was so nice. And I was relaxing. I was reading. And all of a sudden, there was a massive bang on the wooden doors separating the rooms. And I froze because it sounded quite big. And all of a sudden, Gizmo walks out from the door and he looked at me. And I was like, "You okay, Gizmo?" You know, and then he sort of carried on walking around, and I got up to see him walking upstairs. So I thought, I wonder if he's fallen, you know, maybe he's tried to jump up on the table and he's fallen and broke something or knocked it. There was nothing on the floor at all. So I've got no idea how that banged as loudly as it did. But when I turned around, the window by the living room table, Gizmo was outside. And I was
And you don't have two cats, and
I do not.
and
I
it
do
was.
not.
I was gonna
No.
say, and the cat's obviously because the markings on his nose quite recognizable, so we don't think it's some kind of neighborhood cat or anything like that.
Gizmo was original. I've never seen any cat like him. not that he can morph into two cats, but um, I was scared. I'm being honest. Like, if you have a pet and all of a sudden there's like a bang, and I was in the house by myself, so he walked past, and then I turned around and saw him outside. My first thing that came to my head was, which one's the real Gizmo?
Yeah, absolutely. You would.
You know? And it was really freaking me out. I thought I'd be brave and open the back door, but I was wanting to stroke that Gizmo
Mhm.
to make sure it was real and I wasn't imagining it. He was real. He was quite happy and he walked upstairs, so I went behind him, and the other Gizmo that after the bang, there was no other cat.
That's I mean, that's
Mm.
very weird. You know, obviously, so the one outside was the real
Yeah.
Gizmo. The one that went upstairs is just there
Mhm.
was no other cat upstairs when you went looking,
No,
basically.
no, and it happened another time. I was on my I'm disabled. I was on my stair lift, and I was coming down the stairs, and Gizmo was walking up, so I stopped and petted him, and then continued down the stairs, and my husband was doing, the dishes at the kitchen. He said, "Oh, I've just let Gizmo out." I was like, "No, you haven't. I've just stroked him going up the stairs." And he's like, "You couldn't have." He said, "I've just let him out." And I said, "Well, which one's the real Gizmo? So if that's you've let Gizmo out, who's that I've just let upstairs?"
That's
And
very odd. I mean,
this
did
was
did it
happening
I
for
mean,
quite.
did how often did this happen? Obviously, this happened twice that you know of. Did it happen more than that? Was it a regular thing or not?
Yeah. When everything was going crazy in the house, we were seeing lights, that's when the 2 gizmos appeared. We saw the photo of my daughter there with the thing on her shoulder, and it was at that point I remembered the only person that could suggest something when I lived in Edinburgh. I It's not like nowadays where you have a phone, it's a computer to your hand. I had to rent a library computer, walk,
Yeah.
pay to use the computer, log on, and I kept typing in haunted houses, help, you
Mm.
know, um, see, and Lorraine Warren's name came up when I lived in Edinburgh, and I emailed her. I had no idea. I just knew she worked on the Amityville,
Yeah.
but I didn't actually know. Like nowadays, there's so many movies made about her and her work. Um, I have a lot of respect for her. And she messaged me and said, "It sounds like someone's put a curse on you." She said, um, "The only thing that can stop it is faith." And I was like, "Okay." And it's this gonna sound so bad, but I was just like, "No, I'm not going down that route."
Mhm.
But as when things started to get really bad when I moved back to Fife, everything with Gizmo, the lights and everything, I was like, "Right." I never forgot what she said in the email, and I was like, "I've tried everything else." Um, so I joined the local church. The girls, I was never going to put religion onto my girls. I don't believe in that. Like, you
Mhm.
guys can do what you want, but they were scared as well. They were like, "No, I want to know." If I we want to protect ourselves.
Yeah.
I was like, "Okay, let's see if this does anything." So we joined, and the amount of peace that all of us got from that. My husband's not religious. He probably shouldn't laugh, but it is kind of funny. I remember him taking us to church on a Sunday morning, and he pulled up to the church listening to Highway to Hell on the radio blasting.
He's got good taste.
He was like, "Gordon, you get." No, like, "They're probably gonna kick me out if you listen to that." I pull up outside church. My girls thought it was hilarious. They loved it. Um, the priest also thought it was funny, though, when I told him. They
Yeah.
the best sense of humor. I suppose they have to in their job. Um, but yeah, so we all joined the church apart from my husband. And yeah, it's been peaceful. There's been no scary things
Yeah.
since.
I was going to say, in terms of right now, things are kind of a lot calmer. There's nothing kind of, like, say, scary, or and so you're basically in a good place.
Yeah.
But I kind of gather from what you're saying that, and what you've said to me prior to this,
Yeah.
obviously there must be a big part of you that just still wants answers, that still wants to know what the hell was going on, that wants to be believed, essentially. And because it's a lot to have taken in from childhood to now. I mean,
Yeah.
how have you tried to wrap your head around it?
I've tried to look at science.
Mhm.
I've, learned about quantum metaphysics and tried to see how the science can explain some of the things. I do wonder if trauma can do something to the brain that
Mhm.
can then maybe project something. But then it doesn't explain why my kids or other people experience stuff
Yeah.
when I've been asleep, or, I don't know. And so I have tried to look at it neutral, but I can only write my experiences to try and there's got to be somebody out there who might have answers, or who may be going through the same thing and think that they're going nuts as well. But
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I've just got to say again, thank you. Thank you for kind of wanting to talk about your experiences, because it's like I said at the start, some of
yeah.
these were really quite traumatic experiences, and when you're obviously not in a good place in your life, and there's
Mm.
issues in terms of, from childhood, and obviously the abusive relationships and things like that, it all had an impact. So
Yeah.
thank you for kind of sharing it. But absolutely,
Mm.
I hope that anybody's watching this, who feels that, like you said, they may
Yeah.
have had a similar experience and are kind of fearful of
Mm.
revealing it, talking about it, because it's a big thing. It's this.
It
Sometimes I know, just from the limited experience I've had, that sometimes weird things happen, and it takes an awful lot of mental ability to try and work out what could it be. Some kind of is it natural phenomena? Is it something outside of,
Mhm.
what exactly is going on? And I know, obviously, I'm going to put you in touch with one of the people I've mentioned in terms of in parapsychology, that might be able to help you as well. But also, I think it's a good opportunity to anybody else, if you feel that, you might be able to have some suggestions of what may have caused this, just to give, again, to help you with kind of, it's
Yeah,
like, I talk about closure and things, but actually it's just kind of so you can kind of help you
but
understand what
it's
may have been going on.
yeah, like, as a parent, every parent, or most parents, should have an instinct to protect their child or children. How do you protect them from something you can't see?
Mm.
You can't. You can't call it off. You
Yeah.
can't say, "Hey, stop tormenting them, stop waking us up at stupid times of the morning." Um, so yeah, it's been closure for me in a way to be able to speak to you about it and be invited on to talk about the very odd
Yeah.
experiences that I've lived with since I was a child, and now my own family have experienced. I know in this house, in the first lockdown, when everybody had to work from home,
Yeah.
Julia was in her room on her laptop working, and she did the infamous video calls that everybody was having to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And somebody kept saying to Julia, "There's a light that keeps flying past the back of you." And Julia said, "No, there's not." Because she was having none of it. She was like, "No, there's not." And they were like, "It's just gone again."
Wow.
So somebody in her work actually saw that.
Yeah.
So we're hoping it's done.
Yeah.
It's, thankfully there's been nothing more, but yeah.
From my point of view, it's just I found just talking to you absolutely fascinating. I'm sure people listening right now have just been kind of gripped by it, because it for me, there was so much in there, in terms of possible poltergeist, in terms of noises, objects moving, explosion of activity, almost destructive activity.
Yeah.
That then you have the whole issue around this kind of light phenomena, and then the doppelganger cat incident where you've got two cats. So there's a lot to kind of dissect in this. So first of all, thank you, because it's just I found it genuinely absolutely fascinating. And just to thank you again for kind of sharing all of this, and for kind of opening it up for other people to kind of listen to. I think what we'll do, because we've gone over it like an hour there, I'm gonna finish there. But thank you so much. Please, if you're watching and you've enjoyed this podcast, obviously, please think about liking, sharing, subscribing, but it's definitely sharing. But comment, please do comment. If in terms of what you feel it could have been the possible causes for Colette's activity. I've just found a really fascinating talk. Maybe we'll get some answers, maybe we'll never get answers. That's unfortunately the whole nature of this paranormal business.
Can I just
go for it.
Tell the listeners, I will, if there's anything more, I will be posting it on the blog page for anything that changes. If you can follow it, if you want to, Justin might tell you if there's.
I was going to say, do you know your kind of blog address, and people can have or able to follow you online maybe?
Just Beauty Ties blog on X, Pinterest. There's also the blog itself, where I've interviewed some really amazing people on there. The last one was Rachel Lauren, a music artist from America. But that's where you read my blog posts about the strange life that I'm leading. So, I will definitely be posting update. I'm hoping there is none. I'm hoping that's it done. I'm happy, and I can be peaceful.
Move on. Have a happy life, and none of this weird shit that's going on would be nice. Would be good.
Yeah, that would be a relief. But go down the science route, but I will contact that person that you the details of.
Exactly. So Beauty Ties, I will, as soon as this goes out online, I will also be kind of retweeting Colette's blog and things like that. So anybody who's interested can kind of follow that and read at your leisure some of the things that we've kind of talked about this evening and gone through.
There is more on the blog as well. There was just so many things that have happened.
Yeah. But I was going to say, believe it or not, 1 hour and 20, and we're still not covered everything. So there's so much.
There's, I was kind of limited with what I could put in the blog. When I appeared in the magazine, who ran the story on the unusual photo, she said, you need to write a book. There's so much that I was telling her. And she said, you need to write a book. So I did start writing a book, but then for various reasons, I stopped and thought, I'll put it in a blog.
I would say it's definitely worthy of a book, because wow, there's a lot. There's a lot there.
There really is. There's that we haven't spoken about.
Yeah.
And stuff Julia remembers from seeing people that weren't there.
So Colette, just thank you. It's been amazing. I've absolutely loved it.
Me too.
I hope everybody watching as well, you've loved it. Obviously put comments in just to thank Colette. It's like I said, it's quite an amazing events that have happened in your life, but also some difficult things to talk about as well. So thank you very, very much for kind of sharing it and being open to sharing it and putting your face on the webcam and things. So thank you. Right, leave it there, guys. I shall see you another time. But I will finish the stream there. So thank you and cheerio.
Bye.